Jasmine, is it in the spotlight mode in your camera, in your screen?
Yes, sir. Spotlight mode is on.
Super. Thank you.
Can I start?
Sumanji,
Yeah.
start.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Today's topic for discussion is cutaneous T-cell lymphomas. Primary cutaneous T-cell lymphomas are defined as non-Hodgkin's lymphomas presenting in the skin with no evidence of extracutaneous disease at the time of the diagnosis. So these include a heterogeneous group of cutaneous T-cell lymphomas, which constitute about 75 to 80% of the cases, and cutaneous B-cell lymphomas, which constitute about 20 to 25% of the cases. So today I'll be discussing only about the cutaneous T-cell lymphomas. These are malignant clonal transformation of the skin resident or the skin homing T lymphocytes. CTCL accounts for about 2% of all the lymphomas, and the most common among them being mycosis fungoides. It mainly affects African Americans, Caucasians, and Asian Africans. Mainly the elderly age group between 55 to 60 years are affected, the male to female ratio being 2:1 to 3:1. Though the pathogenesis of these lesions are unknown, but there are certain endogenous and exogenous factors that predispose to cutaneous T-cell lymphomas. So, and under exogenous factors, there are infectious as well as environmental and occupational factors. So first, I'll be talking about the endogenous factors. Certain histocompatibility locus antigens have been associated with mycosis fungoides, and mycosis fungoides can run in families linked with the HLA class 2 alleles, which are HLA DRB111 and HLA DQB103. And there are certain mutations which are also associated, which is deletions of 10q and 17p, amplification of 8q and 17q, and about 80 to 90% of the cases carry monoclonal T cell receptor gene rearrangements. And a number of transcription factor genes are also associated and activated in these conditions, which include nuclear factor kappa B2, STAT5B, and NYC. Also, there is an important role of the cytokines, which in the pathogenesis of these lesions. Studies have shown that the helper T cell type 2 specific genes and cytokines are upregulated in mycosis fungoides and Sézary syndrome cells, which are interleukin 4, 5, and 10. And correspondingly, the TH1 specific genes and the cytokines are downregulated, which are interleukin 2 and interferon gamma. So the secretion of these Th2 molecules by the neoplastic T cells, they play a major role in causing the clinical as well as histological manifestations, including hypereosinophilia, immunological abnormalities, and immunosuppression. And certain other cytokines are also associated with the progression of CTLC, which are interleukin 15, 17, 21, and 23. And it has also been said that the mycosis fungoides usually affect the tissue resident memory T cells, and Sézary syndrome affects the circulating central memory T cells. Going on to the exogenous factors under which we have the infectious agent, as we know that the HTLV1, which is a human T lymphotropic virus, which is a retrovirus, which plays an important role in the pathogenesis of adult T cell lymphoma leukemia. So this HTLV1 encodes for a viral protein TAX, which turns on the pro-growth and the pro-survival signaling pathways PI3K and AKT and NF-kappa B, which leads to polyclonal expansion of these T cells. Also, these attacks also causes genomic instability, which interferes with the DNA repair mechanisms and also inhibits the cell cycle checkpoints. The next being the Epstein-Barr virus, which is mainly associated with the CD30 positive lymphoproliferative disorders. So it has been shown that in some studies that the EBV strain 2 has a tropism for the T cells. The next being the superantigens and the toxins from the Staphylococcus aureus, which causes chronic antigenic stimulation as well as immune dysregulation and immunodeficiency. The next being environmental and occupational factors. These include vegetable farming, painting, and woodworking, and also there is an increased risk for individuals working in petrochemical, textile, and metal industries. So this is a updated 2018 WHO and EORTC, which is the European Organization for Research and Treatment of Cancer classification, which gives about these lesions, which I will be discussing one after the other. So the first is the most common mycosis fungoides and its three variants: Sézary syndrome, adult T-cell lymphoma, leukemia, primary cutaneous CD30 positive lymphoproliferative disorders, under which we have cutaneous ALCL and lymphomatoid papulosis, subcutaneous panniculitis like T-cell lymphoma, extranodal NK T-cell lymphoma nasal type, chronic active EBV infection, and the other rare subtypes being primary cutaneous gamma delta T-cell lymphoma, CD8 positive aggressive epidermotropic CTCL, and aggressive cutaneous CD4 positive small medium T cell lymphoproliferative disorder, primary cutaneous acral CD positive T cell lymphoma, and primary cutaneous peripheral T cell lymphoma not otherwise specified. So the ones I've marked in the red is because this updated classification, they have added the primary cutaneous CD8 T cell lymphoma was added, as well as the chronic active EBV disease has been added, and the term primary cutaneous CD4 positive small medium T cell lymphoma was modified into primary cutaneous CD4 plus small medium T cell lymphoproliferative disorder because of its indolent clinical course and uncertain malignant potential. Also, there have been certain modifications in the sections of lymphomatoid papulosis, increasing the spectrum of its histologic subtypes. And these all new updates have been given in the revised 4th edition of WHO. First, going on to the most common mycosis fungoides, the incidence of this increases with age, and it runs a very indolent clinical course with slow progression. So for long periods of time, this lesion is restricted to the skin. However, the disease can progress, and in late stages, it is characterized by fever, weight loss, eosinophilia, atypical lymphocytosis, hepatosplenomegaly, and involvement of various visceral organs like lung, liver, spleen, and GI tract. And apart from the classical mycosis fungoides, there are three variants, which are folliculotropic, vegetoid reticulosis, and granulomatous slack skin. So these atypical cells are positive for CD2, 3, 4, 5, and TCR beta, and negative for 8, 7, and 30. So there are three stages in classical mycosis fungoides. These are patch, plaque, and the tumor stage. So these lesions often involve the sun-protected areas, mainly involving the skin of the axilla, groin, buttocks, breast, and the lower trunk. These are usually asymmetrical, irregular red to violaceous lesions. So going on to the microscopic features, these are atypical small to medium-sized mononuclear neoplastic T cells with cerebriform nuclei. So under the patch stage, we see a superficial band of infiltrate of lymphocytes and histiocytes, along with these few atypical cells, usually confined to the epidermis. Now that is known as epidermotropism when they are confined to the epidermis. So here is a picture where you can see that there is a band of lymphoid infiltrates, as well as in the basal layer of the epidermis, these atypical cells are marked with the arrow are seen. This is a higher power where we can see in the basal layer, the epidermotropic lymphocytes aligned in the basal layer of the epidermis, and CD3 positivity showing a string of pearls appearance. Next is the plaque stage, where we can see with epidermotropism, we see occasional characteristic portreous microabscesses. Now, what are these abscesses? Are nothing but a collection of these abnormal and neoplastic T cells in the epidermis. And in the tumor stage, we see dense, nodular, and diffuse dermal infiltrate with variability in the size and the shape of the cells. So there can be a histological transformation to large cell phenotype, which may occur when there'll be more than 25% of the large lymphocytes in the dermal infiltrate. There can also be areas of necrosis, and mitotic figures can also be noted. So this is the plaque stage, where we can see with the arrow I have marked several intraepidermal portreous microabscesses. And now going on to the algorithm which is proposed for the diagnosis of early mycosis fungoides. The criteria is under 4 categories, which is clinical, histopathological, molecular, and immunopathological, and the scoring is done likewise. So in the clinical category, we have basic and additional. Basic includes persistent or progressive patches and thin plaques, and additional criteria being non-sun exposed location and size or shape variation, or poikiloderma, which is a combination of skin atrophy, telangiectasia, and mottled pigmentation. So 2 points are given for basic plus 2 additional criteria, and 1 point for basic plus 1 additional criteria. Under histopathological, we have basic being superficial lymphoid infiltrate, and additional being epidermotropism without spongiosis, and lymphoid atypia, where we can see enlarged hyperchromatic nuclei with irregular or cerebriform nuclear contours. So we give 2 points for basic plus 2 additional, and 1 point for basic plus 1 additional. Under molecular, you have the clonal T cell receptor gene rearrangement. 1 point is given for the clonality. And under immunopathological, when there are less than 50% CD2 positive, 3 positive, and CD5 positive T cells, or less than 10% of CD7 positive T cells, or there is an epidermal and dermal discordance of CD2, 3, 5, and 7. So 1 point for one or more criteria is given. So finally, when a score of 4 or more points are achieved, this satisfy the criteria for the diagnosis of early mycosis fungoides. Also, I would like to mention that the patients with mycosis fungoides have an increased risk for secondary neoplasms. This could be due to the acquired immunodeficiency. They tend to develop other non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, classical Hodgkin's lymphoma, melanoma, bladder cancers, or biliary malignancies. The choice of treatment is influenced by the stage and the prognosis, and the patients with diseases limited to the skin, they can be treated by local therapies like topical agents, chemotherapy can be done, and the patients where they have lymph node involvement or visceral involvement, we can go ahead with the multi-agent chemotherapy. Next, being the folliculotropic mycosis fungoides, it mainly involves the head and neck region, presenting with follicular papules and plaques, and these are characterized by infiltrates of atypical CD4 positive T cells involving the hair follicles, thus the name folliculotropic, and they usually spare the epidermis, and it is also characterized by the plaques involving the eyebrows associated with alopecia, which are highly characteristic of this lesion. And as the lesion is deep-seated, so it is less accessible to skin-targeted therapies. So here we can see a lesion which is allopatic patch on the scalp. The next image showing a perifollicular erythema, and the histological image where we can see these atypical lymphocytes extending into the follicular epithelium, and they usually spare the epidermis. The 5-year specific disease-specific survival is about 70 to 80%, which is usually worse than the classical mycosis fungoides. Next, being pegatoid reticulosis, they present with a solitary psoriasiform or hyperkeratotic patch or plaque, usually located in the extremities with a slow progression. So they are positive for CD3, 4, and negative for CD8, or they have a pattern of CD3 and 8 positivity and 4 negative, and they usually express CD30. So this is how the histological images, where you will have an exclusively epidermal infiltrate. So there is a pegatoid pattern of these mononuclear cells, of mononuclear convoluted T cells can be seen in the epidermis. So this is classical of pegatoid reticulosis. Next, being the extremely rare variant of mycosis fungoides, which is granulomatous lac skin, which is clinically presenting as a bulky pendulous skin folds in the flexural areas. It runs an indolent clinical course with a good prognosis, and radiation therapy is the treatment of choice. So it is classified by diffuse granulomatous infiltrates, dermal infiltrates, along with giant cells and histiocytes. And here we can appreciate in the next picture the epidermotropism of the atypical lymphocytes. And so the single most important prognostic factor in mycosis fungoides is the extent of the cutaneous and extracutaneous disease. And what are the adverse prognostic parameters are age more than 60 years, elevated LDH levels, failure to achieve complete remission after the first treatment, and histological transformation with increase in the blast cells more than 25%. I will be discussing the TNMB staging after Sézary syndrome, because as they share the similar one. Next is the Sézary syndrome, which is defined by a triad of erythroderma, generalized lymphadenopathy, and presence of clonally related neoplastic T cells with cerebriform nucleus in the skin, lymph node, and peripheral blood. So apart from this, they have one or more additional criteria, which is absolute Sézary cell count of more than 1000 per microliter, expanded CD T cell population where the CD4 T cell ratio being more than or equal to 10, and loss of one or more T cell antigens, usually CD7 or CD26. So here we can see a clinical picture where there is an widespread erythroderma in the skin, and here you can see mainly a dermal lesion with minimal epidermotropism. On the higher power, you can see these neoplastic lymphocytes are small with irregular nuclear contours, and these cells are usually located around the blood vessels in the epidermis. And when they involve the lymph nodes, the nodal architecture is either partially or completely effaced, and there will be sheets of atypical monomorphous lymphoid cells, and these infiltrates can breach through the capsule into the perinodal adipose tissue. There can be areas of necrosis as well as mitotic figures can be seen. In the peripheral blood, here we can see large neoplastic lymphocytes with moderate to scant amount of cytoplasm and deep nuclear indentations and convolutions having a cerebriform appearance, which I have marked with an arrow. So this was the case we received in our department in the month of March, where a 63-year-old male presented to the dermatology OPD with these extensive exfoliative lesions all over his skin. From the peripheral blood, we received for flow cytometry as well as the PS, and we received a skin biopsy as well. So here we can see the flow cytometry report where it is positive for CD3 and CD5, and negative for CD7, CD25, and TCR alpha beta, and negative for CD8. So this is what the report was given as. So B cell markers were negative. It was positive for CD3, 4, 5, negative for 7, 8, 25 TCR alpha beta, and the ratio, as we can see, is much more than the what we saw in the criteria. So it is 48:1. And in the PS, we have reported as lymphocytosis with atypical lymphocytes seen along with eosinophilia. And the skin biopsy was reported as spongiotic pattern with focal atypical lymphocytes in the epidermis. CD45 and 3 were positive in the lymphoid cells. So along with the clinical picture and all these findings, a diagnosis of T cell lymphoproliferative disorder, which is consistent with the Sézary syndrome, was given. So this is the classification for TNMB staging classification for mycosis fungoides and Sézary syndrome. So I'll start with the T staging, where you can see less than these lesions involving less than 10% of the skin surface. T2 is more than or equal to 10% of the skin surface. T3 being one or more tumors more than or equal to 1 centimeter in diameter. T4 is where it's involving more than or equal to 80% of the body surface. And the nodal staging, which is according to the Dutch system and the National Institute of Cancer, which I'll be discussing in the next slide. Also, there are visceral involvement where there is M0 with no visceral organ involvement, M1 with visceral involvement, and B is the blood where there is B0 is less than or equal to 5% of peripheral blood lymphocytes which are atypical, which can be clone negative or positive. That is nothing but the T cell clone, which is defined by the PCR or southern blot analysis of the TCR gene. And next being B1, which is more than 5% of the peripheral blood lymphocytes which are atypical, and B1AB being clone negative and positive, and B2 being the more than or equal to 1000 per microliter of Sézary cells with a positive clone. So this is the Dutch system as well as the National Cancer Institute classification of the nodal involvement, which is used for clinically abnormal lymph nodes which are more than 1.5 centimeter in mycosis fungoides and Sézary syndrome. So under the Dutch system, we have 4 categories. Category 1 is the dermatopathic lymphadenopathy, but with no atypical cerebriform mononuclear cell infiltrates. And the category 2 being dermatopathic lymphadenopathy with early involvement and scattered atypical cerebriform mononuclear cell nuclei. And category 3 being partial effacement of the architecture with many CMCs, and category 4 being complete effacement of the architecture. And under the NCI classification, we have LN0 being no atypical lymphocytes, 1 being occasional or isolated atypical lymphocytes, 2 being where there can be clusters which is of 3 to 6 cells of atypical lymphocytes, LN3 being aggregates of atypical lymphocytes, but the architecture is preserved, and LN4 being when there is partial or complete effacement of architecture with many atypical lymphocytes. So usually Sézary syndrome, it is a very aggressive disease with a median survival of about 32 months, and the 5-year overall survival rate is being 10 to 30% depending on the stage. Usually the lymph node and visceral involvement carries a worse prognosis, and the degree of peripheral blood involvement at the time of the diagnosis may have an impact on the prognosis. Next, moving on to the second common category, being the primary cutaneous CD30 positive T cell lymphoproliferative disorders, under which we have lymphomatoid papulosis and primary cutaneous anaplastic large cell lymphomas. So lymphomatoid papulosis, it is a chronic, recurrent and a self-healing condition, usually involving the trunk and the extremities, and rarely there can be a oral lesions which can be present. So they usually present as papular, papillonecrotic or nodular skin lesions. Here in the picture, we can see papillonecrotic skin lesions. And these are divided into 6 histological types. So I'll be discussing them one after the other. So the most common being type A, where we can see scattered or small clusters of large atypical lymphocytes admixed with the inflammatory cells composed of lymphocytes, eosinophils or neutrophils, and CD30 positivity, as the name suggests. Next being type B, which is less than 5%, where there is epidermotropic infiltrate of CD30 positive or CD30 negative small atypical cells with cerebriform nucleus. Type C being, which accounts for about 10%, where there can be cohesive sheets of large CD30 positive T cells admixed with few inflammatory cells. And CDB can mimic the early stage of mycosis fungoides. So this we can see in the first picture, where we can see there is epidermotropic infiltrate of small to medium atypical cells, and this may mimic the early stage of mycosis fungoides. And here you can see the diffuse infiltrate of large atypical cells in type C, and this is it is staining positive for CD30. Type 3, where there is strongly epidermotropic or pegatoid infiltrate of these small to medium CD8 positive and CD30 positive pleomorphic T cells. Now, this lesion can mimic the primary cutaneous aggressive epidermotropic CD8 positive T cell lymphoma. And here the histological image, we can see marked in the first image, marked epidermotropism, and which may mimic the cutaneous aggressive epidermotropic CD positive cytotoxic T cell lymphoma, and extensive epidermotropism of small to medium sized pleomorphic T cells are noted under the higher power. Now type E, where you can see angiocentric as well as angiodestructive infiltrates of small to medium sized CD30 and 8 positive atypical cells. So here we can see an angiodestructive pattern in type E. Next being, which is the next category being, which is characterized by the chromosomal rearrangement of DOSP22 and IRF4 locus on 6p25.3. And so these lesions are basically composed of a weakly CD30 positive small T cells with cerebriform nuclei and strongly CD30 positive medium to large atypical cells in the dermis. So next, so this is what these are the histological types, where we can see the 6 histological types. What are the predominant phenotypes and what are the main differential diagnosis of these lesions? Next, moving on to cutaneous T cell lymphomas. These are solitary or localized nodules. They often show ulceration as seen in the picture, and they may show partial or complete regression. And about 10% of the cases may show extracutaneous spread to regional lymph nodes. And the patients with cutaneous ALCL should not have a clinical evidence or a history of mycosis fungoides. And if such a setting is present, the diagnosis of mycosis fungoides with large cell transformation, which may be CD30 positive or negative, is more likely. Now here we can see a histological image where there is sheets of large tumor cells which have abundant to moderate amount of cytoplasm, and which show irregularly shaped nuclei and prominent eosinophilic nucleoli. And epidermotropism may or may not be present in such lesions. And these are CD30 positive. So as we know, in primary systemic ALCL, there is a distinction made between ALK positive ALCL and ALK negative ALCL, where the ALK positive carries a better prognosis. In the group of ALK negative, there have been two other recurrent rearrangements which have been detected, which include DUSP22IRF4, which carries a favorable prognosis, and TP63 gene rearrangement, which carries a very poor prognosis. So unlike systemic ALCL, the cutaneous ALCL usually do not carry the translocations involving the ALK and do not express ALK. So if there is an expression of ALK, it could suggest that there could be a secondary cutaneous involvement of an ALK positive systemic ALCL. But there have also been certain unusual cases where there have been ALK positive cutaneous ALCLs. And now these, when they show strong nuclear and cytoplasmic positivity, they are associated with the 2,5 chromosomal translocation. And when there are cases expressing only the cytoplasmic ALK, these could be an indication of a variant translocation. Also, there is a novel recurrent NPM1-TYK2 gene fusion, which leads to constitutive STAT signaling in both cutaneous ALCL as well as in lymphomatoid papulosis. Also, the overall prognosis is favorable, with 10-year disease specific survival rate being approximately 90%. Next, moving on to the subcutaneous panniculitis like T-cell lymphoma. It is a rare lymphoma which is slightly more common in females. It is composed of primarily infiltrates in the subcutaneous tissue, shows high-grade cytological features with T cells showing cytotoxic phenotype, and these only consist of alpha beta positive T cell phenotype. So this is how in the lower part we can see there is a dense lymphoid infiltrate involving only the subcutaneous fibroadipose lobules, and the dermis and the epidermis is usually spared in this condition. So here we can see that there is a subcutaneous nodule or a plaque which may be usually present in the trunk and the extremities. And here we can appreciate that these lesions are mainly surrounding, these neoplastic cells usually surround the fat cells. So that is characteristic of this lesion, and they are CD8 positivity. And in about 50% of these cases, they may show systemic symptoms, which can be like there can be lab abnormalities, which can include cytopenias or elevated liver function tests. And in about 15 to 20% of the cases, there can be frank hemophagocytic syndrome, and we can see hepatosplenomegaly. So lymph node involvement is usually absent in such cases, and rarely the bone marrow involvement can be present with involvement of the fat cells within the marrow spaces. So these are usually CD8 positive with the expression of cytotoxic molecules, and the cells express beta F1, suggesting that they are from the alpha beta origin of T cells, and negative for CD56, thus helping in differentiating from the gamma delta T cell lymphoma, which I will be discussing next. And also important to rule out the lupus panniculitis. So CD123 is negative, and if it is positive, it is usually it identifies the plasmacytoid dendritic cells which are present in lupus panniculitis. So dissemination to lymph node and other organs is usually rare, with the overall survival rate being 80%. But if there is a hemophagocytic syndrome, the prognosis is poor. Next is primary cutaneous gamma delta T cell lymphoma, where there is clonal proliferation of mature activated gamma delta T cells with cytotoxic phenotype. So they clinically present as patches or plaques, and dissemination to mucosal or extranodal sites is frequently observed, and B symptoms like fever, night sweats, and weight loss occur in most of the patients. And histologically, there can be three patterns. Either it could be an epidermotropic lesion, dermal, or subcutaneous lesion. And often we can find more than one histological pattern present in the same patient in different biopsies or within the single biopsy specimen. So here we can see a markedly abnormal epidermotropic infiltrate of large cells with conspicuous nucleoli. So this is basically an epidermal lesion. Next, this is a purely dermal infiltrate where the epidermis is not affected, but we can see the diffuse infiltration of the atypical cells in the dermis. And this being where there is a dermal in the image A, where there is dermal infiltrate present, And there can also be extension from the epidermis to the subcutis, and we can also see paniculitis like pattern, as you can see in the image D, where when these neoplastic cells are rimming the fat cells. But how you can differentiate is those are alpha beta origin and this is gamma delta, and also these lesions can involve the dermis and the epidermis, whereas the previous lesion is usually sparing the dermis and the epidermis. So these are positive for CD3 to gamma delta TCR with strong expression of cytotoxic proteins, and negative for beta F1. And this usually carries a poor prognosis with a median survival of approximately 15 months. Also, I would like to say that the patients with the subcutaneous fat involvement tend to have a more unfavorable prognosis than the patients with the dermal or epidermal involvement. Next being CD8 positive aggressive epidermotropic cytotoxic T cell lymphoma, which occurs mainly in adults. They can be localized or disseminated eruptive nodules, plaques, or tumors with central ulceration, and they have a tendency to disseminate to other organs like lungs, testis, CNS, oral mucosa, and lymph nodes are often spared in this condition. It carries an aggressive clinical course with a median survival of about 12 months. So in disseminated variant, we see a lichenoid pattern with marked vegetoid epidermotropism and subepidermal edema. And if you have a localized variant, so it will be usually a deeper lesion with more nodular and less epidermotropic infiltrate. There can be invasion and destruction of the adnexal structures, and angioinvasion may be seen. So here we see clinically they present with nodular lesions with central ulceration, and we can see that the tumor cells here being mainly in the dermis, where we can see small to medium T cells with the pleomorphic nuclei, and these are usually positive for CD8, and as the name suggests, cytotoxic, so they are positive for the cytotoxic molecules, and here it's showing positivity for TIA1. Next being acral CD8 positive T cell lymphoma, which is clinically characterized by involvement of the acral sites, in particular the ears, and it carries a fairly good prognosis with complete remission after surgical removal or radiotherapy. So here we can see a ear lesion, and we can see that these are usually monotonous dermal proliferation of atypical medium-sized lymphocytes with irregular and folded nuclei and small nucleolus. The epidermis is often spared, and these cells are positive for CD3, CD8, TIA1, beta F1, and CD68. Usually, TIA1 and CD68 display a Golgi dot-like staining. Next being CD4 positive small to medium lymphoproliferative disorder. So these clinically present as solitary patch or plaque on the face, neck, and the upper trunk. And the cells are usually positive for 3, 4, and negative for CD8 and 30. These atypical CD4 cells are positive for PD1, BCL6, CXCL13, suggesting a T follicular helper cell derivation. They have an excellent prognosis, and intralesional steroids, surgical excision, and radiotherapy are the modes of treatment. So here we can see a scalp lesion, and we can see diffuse dense and diffuse nodular dermal infiltrate within the dermis. So you can see these small medium pleomorphic T cells, and these are often admixed with other lymphocytes, plasma cells, and histiocytes. And it's not the next being adult T cell leukemia or lymphoma. This is an aggressive peripheral T cell lymphoma caused by the HTLV1 virus. The skin is affected in approximately half of the cases, or it may be the first manifestation of the disease. So it can present as a macule, papule, plaque, or a tumor. And there are the four clinical variants of this condition. So those are acute, lymphomatous, chronic, and smoldering variants. And it usually carries a poor prognosis, but the smoldering subtype has a better prognosis. So here we can see that the skin lesion is there is an epidermal infiltration, as well as you can see epidermal infiltration, as well as the dermal lymphocytes can also be, atypical lymphocytes are present, which are usually positive for CD3, CD4 and negative for CD8. These are positive for CD25, and the T regulatory molecules, which is FOXP3 positivity, can also be seen. Also, the chronic and the smoldering forms, the neoplastic cells are small with minimal cytological atypia, whereas the acute and the lymphomatous forms will have a more pronounced cytological atypia. And the survival time for the acute and lymphomatous variants being 2 weeks to 1 year, and the death is often by opportunistic infections by Pneumocystis jirovecii infection or disseminated herpes zoster. The chronic and the smoldering variant, as I told, carries a better prognosis, but these can progress to the acute phase in about 25% of the cases and carry an aggressive clinical course. So the next category being chronic active EBV infection in the childhood, under which we have the hydroa vacciniform like lymphoproliferative disorder, which is HV like LPD, and hypersensitivity reaction to the mosquito bites. So the HV like lymphoproliferative disorders have a CD8 positive phenotype, whereas the hypersensitivity to the mosquito bites show a NK cell like phenotype. So this is an HV like lymphoproliferative disorder. These usually, clinically they present as a papulo vesicular eruption on sun-exposed areas like face, back of the hands and earlobes. And in severe cases, they may show facial swelling with systemic symptoms being fever, lymphadenopathy, or hepatosplenomegaly. So here we can see epidermal degeneration with spongiotic vesiculation here with spongiotic vesiculation, and we can see lymphoid infiltrates in the dermis, and these are usually around the periadnexal or perivascular infiltrates, and these are small to medium sized neoplastic cells without any significant atypia. And as I told you, they are CD8 positive, and some may show CD4 positivity as well. These patients may have recurrent skin lesions for as long as 10 to 15 years before they progress to a systemic involvement. And with systemic involvement, the clinical course becomes more aggressive. Next, being the and under the also I would like to mention that under the hypersensitivity to the mosquito bite, we can see in the epidermis there can be ulceration or an intraepidermal bullae, and in the dermis there can be edema with polymorphic cells which are composed of small lymphocytes, large atypical cells, abundant eosinophils, as well as histiocytes. And next is the extranodal NK T cell lymphoma nasal type, which has a strong EBV association. And these skin lesions are commonly nodular with ulceration over the trunk and the extremities. So these lesions, mainly it is involving the upper aerodigestive tract, which is the nasal cavity, nasopharynx, paranasal sinuses, or the palate. But the preferential sites of their extranodal involvement can be skin, GI tract, testis, or soft tissue. Then the microscopic features are the small to medium pleomorphic lymphoid infiltrates in the dermis and the subcutis, and which show prominent localization and the destruction of the blood vessels. Extra nasal lesions have a highly aggressive with short survival and poor response to therapy. Next and the last category is peripheral T cell lymphoma, not otherwise specified. So these are heterogeneous category of the nodal and extranodal mature T cell lymphomas that do not correspond to any of the specifically defined entities. So they are under this category. So the lymphoma cells infiltrate the dermis and the subcutis, and they often form nodules which may undergo central necrosis. Epidermotropism, adnexal involvement, or angiocentricity may be present. They have a highly aggressive, has a highly aggressive lesion with poor response to therapy and low 5-year survival rate. So this is an image where you can see a diffuse dermal nodular involvement of medium to large cells with pleomorphism and vesicular chromatin, few showing prominent nucleoli, and frequent mitosis can be seen. These are usually CD4 positive, and CD8 can be positive or negative, and TCR beta F1 is positive in these cases. And this is a summary of all the lesions and the clinical features, phenotype with cytotoxic proteins present or absent, and the major lineage of the cells and their association with EBV. Thank you. These are my references.
think Suman,
Yes,
just
ma'am.
amazing, huh? You really went into such a detail. Amazing. For a first year, I think you've gone through the entire thing in such a detailed way. I don't think you left anything for discussion. Very good.
Thank
Excellent.
you. Thank you, ma'am.
I think we'll move on to questions and then we will open up for discussion. Who's your moderator? Suman?
Gayatri, ma'am. Shri
Ma'am,
Gayatri.
myself, ma'am.
Gayatri. Go on.
Suman, it was a very good
Very good.
presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
You have you brought out all the differences between even the subtle histopathological changes and also the clinical features of the inviting. So we'll go to the questions.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. This is the first question where we need to identify the lesion.
Who's there? Ritika is there? Ritika, can you answer this question? What is this picture showing A, B, and C?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
It's
please.
localized papules that we can see, and on histopathology, these are atypical large cells with abundant cytoplasm and prominent eosinophilic nucleoli, and they are CD30 positive and ALK positive. So it's the ALK positive anaplastic large cell lymphoma.
Yes, ma'am.
Very nice.
Next question.
Very good, Ritika. You brought the right answer then.
Next question.
Next question. Next question. Josephine, are you there? Josephine, can you answer this next question?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, it is a localized papular lesion with in the histopathology picture we are seeing atypical cells arranged in sheets showing PD1 and CD4 positivity. So this is a cutaneous CD4 positive T cell lymphoproliferative disease.
Yes, next question.
Yes, ma'am. Microscopic features of
Microscopic features of plaque stage of mycosis
Yes,
fungi. Anirudh, are you there? I'm not sure whether he's there or not. Anirudh.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Here he's there. I can hear him. Yeah, Anirudh, louder, please.
Okay. Jayalakshmi? Jayalakshmi explained these microscopic features of plaque stage of mycosis.
I think Anirudh is there, guys. I think
Yes,
he's
ma'am.
right up. Anirudh,
Anirudh?
Yes.
answer.
It would be intradermal.
Plaque stage is in between the patch and the deep cutaneous stage.
Intraepidermal lymphocytes will be present. Epidermotropism.
Benita, are you there? Can you explain? Anirudh's voice is not very clear.
Ma'am, can you hear me? Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes,
Benita, we
Benita.
can hear you.
Yes.
See atypical lymphocytes which are small to medium with cerebriform nuclei, and there will be epidermotropism with porphyrious microabscess within the epidermis.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Last.
Next. This is a picture to show that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This
Flow
picture to show
report
the
being
mycosis fungi plaque stage. Go to the next question.
Ma'am, next question I displayed, ma'am. This is the question, ma'am, where we can see the
question. What's the question there?
Sorry, ma'am.
No, I can't see the question there. I can see the picture.
Yes, ma'am. The question is on the top where we can see atypical lymphocytes with cerebriform nuclei, and it is seen in the peripheral blood of the patient with the following cutaneous lymphoma, and the flow report shows elevated CD4 to CD8 ratio, ma'am. That is the question.
You want the diagnosis, right?
You want a diagnosis for
Yes,
that?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Jayalakshmi, can you make out the diagnosis on this?
Sézary syndrome, ma'am.
Okay, fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good.
Okay, very good.
Very nice
Excellent,
presentation.
Suman, really. You took us through.
Were
and
very clear.
Yeah. Thank you, Gayatri. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, if anybody has it open for discussion, Bharti, I think wants to say something.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Not to you, I think, to the final years. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Why there is a preferential selection to the skin for the lymphocytes to home? Why, or rather, how is it different from cutaneous and non-cutaneous infiltration? Any final year?
Cutaneous
What is the
lymphocyte
difference between that cutaneous infiltration and the non-cutaneous infiltration?
Is
Any
Priya-
difference
Priya?
in that homing? Gayatri, you are able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you very well. I think Priya.
Yeah. Any final years?
Is Priya?
cutaneous-
Shanmuga Priya?
Cutaneous lymphocyte antigen will be
Louder. Your voice is not clear, Shanmuga Priya.
cutaneous lymphocyte antigen will be that there will be increased
Yes.
and these clonal T cell gene rearrangements are directed towards that.
Okay. Where do they bind?